start my recording here. So, just make sure your phones are turned off. I'm not going to tap that right now. This came to me, of course, I get a lot of information in things that I come across, like movies I watch and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff in sessions, because that's where most of my life is spent, is in sessions. So I get a lot of my feedback and information through sessions. And this had been coming to me for a little while, but it really kind of solidified. I was actually hoping this person would come to group, but she didn't make it. And what's coming to me, or what came to me as a result of this one particular session I had Thursday was, or Friday actually, is I rest in knowing that my word is my world. Now that might seem kind of just, no, not such a big deal, but where I am right now in my own exploration and my own understanding is this phrase alone is the ultimate key. And we're going to discuss it. Number one being resting in the knowing and realizing that my word is my world. When I was doing the session, what first came up for this person was my word is the world. But as we did the session, the changed to my, because every one of us is having a slightly different experience of reality, even though we're even sharing the same space, the same city. Everybody's reality is different. I mean, there's thousands of different experiences to be had just in this one city. I mean, there's horrid things happening in this city, and there's also blissful things happening in the city at any given moment. And where you are is where your consciousness cues you into. But what I'm going to discuss is the importance of the knowing that you're... Actually, I wrote that twice, right? I threw this video together super fast. I did it all today. Normally I take a lot more time. So there's going to be some errors in here. But it's my word is my world. And I think we understand that to some degree, but we have to know it. We can't just think it. We have to know it. And I'm going to discuss that pathway tonight. So these are the videos. They're called, if you look on YouTube, and I'm saying this for people that are watching this on YouTube, it's called Logos and the Hologram, and there's part 1 and part 2. And the part that I just showed y'all before we started this was the end of part 2. And those videos I had to take off because they were copyrighted. So if you're going to understand this video, or you have trouble understanding this video, if you go back to this Logos and the Hologram, it'll make a little more sense. So this is the tree of life. Whoops. In the Kabbalah. See how all the orbs are evenly spaced until here? This is that missing orb at the throat. You see it here overlaid on the flower of life, or this is called the tree of life in Drumbelo's work. And basically they're missing one center part here into your voice. So here's your root chakra, this is your second chakra, third chakra, fourth, fifth, right there is missing. And I'm going to go over how, to some degree, the church has taken the throat away, or taken our throat away, or our power. And when I say church, I mean pretty much any organized belief system, even some of the ones that we may think we're in. We're going to go over that a little bit more. So there's a missing fruit from the Kabbalah, the tree of life, and it's our voice. And we have to get it back in order to have our creative power. So we're going to discuss this. So manipulation. I was talking to Laurie last night, and I love talking to her because we kind of connect at this deeper or level of understanding. So we kind of push each other to get things. So she brought in some of the information I'm going to share later about the simulation, the concept that maybe we're in a simulation, almost like a computer game, if you will, and some aspects about religion and consciousness. So I'm going to share with you. So if I walked up to one of you and I told you to do something that you didn't agree with, would you do it?
No.
No. And if I tried to force you, what would you do? Fight back, okay? But I'm going to read this because since I threw this all together, I have all these bullet points in my head, but I haven't fully organized them, just to give you an insight of how my brain works. Right now it's exploded everywhere. So I'm trying to organize all this so it makes a little more sense to y'all. If I walked up to you, so I don't have to read this is what I'm saying. If I walked up to you and I told you to do something you didn't want to, you might tell me to go jump off a cliff. If I tried to force you to do something, you might react with force. In other words, you might fight against me, right? However, if I got you to emotionally resonate with and believe what I was saying, I could get you to do anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I get you to believe something, I can make you do freaking anything. That's key to get, okay, as we go through this. I could even get you to kill for me in the name of what I got you to believe. You see it all the time, right? But the key is if I went to you and you're being a conscious being and I told you to do something that went against your core being, you couldn't do it. However, if I went a route that wasn't directly forceful at you, I could manipulate you in the long run. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, oh, and I forgot I was going to do this. I was going to put a picture of this in. But most of y'all know the chessboard, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. On the chessboard, what is right next to the king and the queen? The bishops, yes. The church. The church are two very powerful pieces. And what I'm saying here is people can use, or I would even say, and when I say things like this, I'm not saying I'm looking at reality to fight any particular person, okay? I'm just saying it's how we've been manipulated to some degree. We have an organized group of people, and the first line of manipulation is religion, okay? Then it goes out into the military, which are the knights. So the first line is the belief systems. If you can own somebody's belief systems, you own an entire people. Does that make sense? And what I do is I can guide you after I take your voice away. Okay? But I can't do it directly. That's stupid. If I would lose so many people if I tried to take over another country. I would lose so many people in the fight. And we see that all the time. However, if I was charismatic and I knew the right thing to say and I could manipulate you into believing anything, then I could control you without having to have to fight you. Does that make sense? Okay? I'm gonna address this later. I just want to bring that up to the front now. So I can even get you to kill somebody in the name of something if I got you to emotionally invest and believe in it strong enough. So even if it went against the natural flow of your energy and the intellect you have. In other words, if I give you a false script that overwrote your current natural script, you may do anything I want. And what I'm talking about, the natural script, is we got our DNA, which is actually an energetic script. You could even say it's like computer code that we operate off of. And we do this naturally if it's not interfered with. So, for example, a seed. A seed has an entire script. So you plant a seed, it goes through its entire thing, it grows up. And on one level, when you ingest something, whether it's for medicine or for food, what you're really getting is the information that was stored in that particular thing. So your body is basically interacting with information in other things. Does that make sense? Okay? So when you eat something, you're ingesting the script. So let's say this particular seed was grown like echinacea, and it's good for your immune system. If you take it, you're getting that information into your cells to heal. Does that make sense? Okay? And other things do different things. So whatever you're ingesting, the script and your body, emotions and body react in the upcoming script. Let me read that again. When you're eating something, you're ingesting the script, and your body, emotions, and body react to the incoming script of information. So the word information basically means information is forming something. It's putting information. So if I tell you something, it's like you're forming a picture in your head, right? And the direction. So when I eat something, I'm not just getting the information. I'm getting the directions of what it's telling my cells to do. So basically you could say when you eat something, you get this line of code. It tells your cell what to do. Does that make sense? Okay? So things like GMO, when you GMO something, genetically modified. When you genetically modify it, you override the natural script or you corrupt it, either way. You're putting something negative into it, right? Now this goes two ways. We can overwrite scripts in a positive way, which we do in the group. Like when we're doing tapping on the EFT, we're addressing someone's negative emotional issues. We're rewriting the script to positive. But it can also be worked the other direction too, in a negative way. But it goes way beyond just plant seeds. It also goes into the human seed. So the human seed can be implanted with negativity too, with scripts and stuff like that. Does that make sense? And we pass those things on genetically also. And this actually was in a session Thursday. Like I said, I get a lot of teaching in sessions, and a lot of the stuff I teach is like I get a bunch of different sessions and it comes together. So I had this session Thursday, which ties into this. So, oh, and this is actually on the wrong page here. It's supposed to be up here. Let me do this. What is another name for a medication? What do we call that? Some people, like if you get your medication, like I'm going to go to the store to get my prescription or script, right? So a medication is also a rewriting. It's a script. Think about it that way. It's information that goes in and rewrites something. Actually on a DNA level. Medications tend to affect a DNA level more than a food would. So I'm now going to go to this session on Thursday to bring in something to bring this point across, especially with us that have worked on this before about the mental emotional patterns and how they interfere with us. So this person came in, and the story was she's empathic, she feels things, but she also knows she should protect herself energetically when she's working on someone. So she's got a friend who's got some health issues, and her friend was complaining about these health issues one day. She had heard it like all week, and this particular day it was really affecting her. And the person energetically guarded herself. Naturally, here's the thing to get. She naturally guarded herself, okay? But what happened is her mind says, why am I being so rude? Why am I cutting this person out? So the implanted programs that maybe she got through religion and things like that, like I should be giving all the time, things like that, overrode her body's natural defense mechanism. It says, this person is trying to take my energy, I'm going to defense up, right? That's the natural flow. But her program said, that's being rude. So that mental program, that script that overwrote the natural script caused her to open a hole in her energy and then let that energy come in and affect her. Does that make sense? So there is a very strong example. So let's say she had some religious programming that says, you know, I'm not spiritual or religious unless, you know, I listen to everybody's problems. Does that so? But but it was a really good example for me because here's this person naturally guarding herself, but then inside her head she starts feeling guilty for it. That should be a really good strong clue for us because naturally our energy is going to do what it needs to do without our interfering with it. Why we have health issues is because we have a wrong program in there telling us to do something that we shouldn't do. That's the main problem that causes all our physical problems. So here, naturally, she guarded herself. So she was conscious that she was cutting her friend off, and then she started feeling guilty for it. And feeling guilty for it made her open up a hole. But the thing was, she should never have opened the hole up. She should have gone with closing the energy off. Does that make sense? But she went against that. She went against the natural flow of energy. So that's just one example of how a program overrides, like this whole, you know, morals and things like that. They can mess with our energy. So by thinking I should be doing this or shouldn't be doing that, that interfered with the flow of energy. And she opened herself up instead of letting the energy do what it was going to do. Does that make sense? And we all do it all the time. Every one of us do this type of thing. We open ourselves up when we should just be letting our energy do what it's doing and not judge ourselves. That's when we mess up. And we judge ourselves based on some kind of script, some kind of program that somebody fed us a long time ago. So, changing scripts. You rewrite someone's natural script through beliefs and emotions. So if you tell someone to believe a particular way, like religion's really good about this because you tie someone in to a particular belief, you get their emotions tied up in it, and then you can control them. So belief systems control your emotions, and then that winds up controlling your words, because we're going to get back to why words are so important. So if you give someone new words or a new script, so like a movie script, it's just a bunch of words, right? So the script is information telling your body or your mind what to do. So give someone new words to repeat over and over, and they're going to change their physical body, okay? Like we've been experiencing in a group where we'd put somebody up in front and we'd send them energy through our hands. We're evolving past that particular step because we're not even having to do the whole hand thing with energy, and the person's feeling it instantaneously, just as soon as somebody thinks it. Does that make sense? So we're moving into this new realm where we can start to play with this even more. So rewriting the script by rewriting someone's inner and outer worlds. So if I give you some kind of belief system to believe in and you keep repeating it in your head over and over and over, it's going to affect your physical body and your reality. And this can, like I said, this can be used in a positive way or a negative way. So the picture here is just someone's consciousness, represents that. Here's the DNA, which is basically a bunch of letters in itself, A, T, G, and C. And then here's like a doctor script, telling, so you're going to take a particular prescription, but it's going to tell your body what to do. So beliefs, if you break down the word beliefs, and you rearrange the letters, it's be life. So whatever you believe, that winds up being your life. So your beliefs actually turn into words. Whether you're saying them inside your head or you're saying them aloud, it doesn't matter. The words are just as powerful. They're more powerful spoken out loud. But if you're repeating something like I'm stupid inside your head, that is literally affecting your hormonal cascade just via the third eye, the hypothalamus, and the pituitary. So unless you get a hold of that whole mechanism, then you're letting these things affect your body. So beliefs lead to words, which lead to your reality. So if you control someone's thoughts, you wind up controlling their inner and outer words. Does that make sense? So if somebody comes in with a belief system, tells you to believe a particular thing, and you think it, you can't help but have the internal words and the external words that back that up because you believe it, right? And I'm not bashing on religion. I really not. But I know there are some particular religious beliefs out there who want to convert people because they're taught that they need to save people. But I've had that where somebody comes, sits with me, and they're trying to witness to me or change my perception. And when I was younger and I didn't get it, I'd be rebellious against it. I was raised Baptist when I was younger. I would rebel against somebody telling me how to think and believe. But now that I get the bigger picture, I really don't hate that person, or I'm not angry at that person, because you know what? They were given a very specific belief system that said if they didn't witness to other people, I would be in danger. So they have to do it. Does that make sense? So that's another example of somebody being controlled by their belief system. They have to do it. Why am I going to be mad at them? Because that was their script. That was some belief system that they bought into. And our belief systems literally control our words, our actions, everything. So if you attach yourself to a belief, and this has been coming to me for a while, I'm coming to the whole feeling within myself. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. But what I'm coming to within myself is if you believe anything, it's going to limit you to some degree. So even when I share stuff now, I have to be really aware of what I'm sharing, and I want you to be aware of what I'm sharing you don't have to buy into, because I don't want to give you any new beliefs. I'm trying to disassemble my own beliefs and try to help you to do the same thing, because if I give you another belief, it's another limitation. It's like religion is a box, and maybe metaphysical gives you another box, a little bit bigger, but it even has its own limitations within it. Does that make sense? I don't want to trade boxes. I don't want to have any boxes, to be honest. So when you attach yourself to a belief, your attention goes to that, and then that means you're tied to a specific event or experiences, right? You're going to be looking at that. So, and this is another thing I see in sessions all the time, and this is something that the client I was working on Friday, the one about the voice, and what came up is she was doing some research on she's got a more religious vein, but she was looking up something, and she was realizing she was getting into the agnostic belief system, and she was looking at things, and what she started to understand is that maybe there's really no right or wrong at all. Maybe simply what makes something right or wrong is you believing it and buying into it. So if you believe that like one of the Indian superstitions was that the earth was formed by the tortoise, the turtle, or Sophie, feminine energy, gave birth to a lesser God who's experiencing and growing and learning through our experiences. Whatever the belief system is what there's really no truth except what you believe that puts the energy into it. Okay? So anything you believe winds up being some type of limitation.
Amen.
Speaking of amen, what is a popular name for the Bible? The Word, right? So here you've got this natural flowing energy. You've got this word, these scripts that run within you, like the girl that I worked on. Her energy field naturally armed up because she energetically sensed her energy was being trespassed on, right? She naturally injured, she geared up, but she was taught through other words, like the Bible, that she should be open and exposed. And when she did that, she got a big whammy from it. So basically, she had some physical issues manifest that were actually the other girl's issues. But she took them on because instead of following through and letting her energy do what it was supposed to, she went against that because of other things she was taught through words. I'm not saying religion is the only way to do that. We pick up new words all the time. So all beliefs lead to boxes. Some New Age beliefs may be bigger than some other religious boxes. It's just a bigger box. But they still wind up being boxes in the end too. Maybe they're boxes bigger, but all boxes have limitations built into them. We're going to get into this a little bit later, but doubt and uncertainty lead to stress. And I'm going to bring that in really specific, going back to knowing that your word creates reality. If you know that your word creates reality, there should be no stress in your life. When you stress, it's a symptom telling you that you've fallen out of your own power, your own knowing. If you're stressing about something, then you're not in your own power. If you literally know that your word is your world, which is what I'm working to embody, then I don't have anything to fear or stress about. So again, beliefs equal be life. And this kind of this little line came to me. Beliefs are like mind candy that rots your soul. So we can be in two types of worlds. We can let things happen to us, or we think we have the perception things are happening to us and complain, use your voice in that negative way. Or you can be a conscious part of creation and using your voice not to complain about what's happening in your life, but to change it. Also, when I was doing this session, I got a strong visual or image of the Tower of Babel, which is interesting because, the story goes in biblical terms that men were getting together and building this huge tower up to the gods because they were arrogant and wanted to take over and be like gods. But what was interesting, during this session, I got a whole new a whole new perception of that story. And what I got was, that was like, all right, if you read certain stories and you believe them or you feel them, the subtle message of that story is don't be arrogant and think you're more than who you are. Does that make sense? That could be like a subtle message in there. So that's like if you're reading it, it's like those words are being written into what you believe. And then you start acting in that way, like, oh, who am I to think I can be powerful? Who am I to try to be godly? You see what I'm trying to say? So that overrides the natural inclination of us to try and evolve and be better people. So what winds up in some of the religious aspects is, even when you die, you give up everything you've done, confessing you being a mistake, and that's how you enter the kingdom. But to me, where the shift I've made is it's from me not coming in here to lose my will, because that doesn't even logically make sense to me anymore. I'm going to come in, have all these experiences, and God gave me an individual will, an individual being, so that in the end I'm supposed to give it up. That doesn't make sense. And where I've come now is I'm actually supposed to be developing that. I'm supposed to be developing and becoming something stronger. And actually the Tower of Babel, during that session, I realized it was like a story to detour us from trying to be better people or to be more godly. Does that make sense? That's how I interpreted it. So instead of me trying to be better and better and seeing and owning my own power, it made me feel like that to have that urge or that desire was bad. Does that make sense? Okay. Everybody's like, all right. Everybody's sleepy tonight. So,
deep in thought.
So,
well, the Babel, the thing that always struck me with that story of Babel, and how it relates to what you're talking about today, is it was all these voices. To me, it was a cacophony of all these different voices trying to define God in their own way, and you can't do that.
yeah. So it's like in the Babel, instead of on the subject of voice, if you take and separate people by voice, by language, by belief system, then you can get everyone against each other. You know that movie Hunger Games? Okay, I saw that for the second time. And usually when you watch something again, you get a different perspective. What I got this time with the movie, who here has not seen Hunger Games? You haven't seen? I recommend seeing it. It's actually really good. The reason, because in Hunger Games you have these 12 districts, and at one time you had these elites who run everything, and then all these districts weren't districts. They all rose up against the elites, and then the elites split them up and to control them. And what they did is they made all the districts hate each other and fight each other. So that's just another easy ploy to take someone's power away. Oh, don't unite as a people. It's like back to the Tower of Babel. It's like separate everybody, make everybody against everybody, not working together to be spiritual evolving beings. You see what I'm trying to say? So a very clever way of controlling people. Interesting thing when you change your perception how things happen. I was house setting for somebody this weekend, and you've been driving around seeing all those pray for rain signs. I've been driving around seeing all those pray for rain signs, and we've talked about it before, because pray for rain is actually a command. You're telling somebody to do something instead of saying something like it is raining. Like if everybody put in their front yard it's raining, and we read that sign and we put that vibe out, not pray, because pray for rain is only a command. You're telling somebody to do something. But if everybody put a sign in the yard, it's raining, and everybody's driving around reading and thinking it's raining, I wonder what that would have effect, right? But anyway, that's another story. But when I went by to check their mail, I caught something on the sign. It's on the very bottom. I didn't even know that was there. So my perception had opened up because I was working on this. And Theologians 5:17 says, pray constantly. So they're referencing this the Theologians 5:17, they're referencing this script that says pray continually. And what came to me is I don't think that this is a command. I think it's a statement of fact. The fact is that we are always continuously praying. And if you make that awareness in your mind, then that makes it really important to be aware of what the hell you're thinking, because every thought you have is a prayer. So if you're going around thinking negative things about somebody, just have the perception in your mind that you're actually praying for that to happen. Does that make sense? Be aware of that. Because every freaking thing you think is a prayer. Especially when we start getting deeper into this, what I'm trying to talk about is your thoughts are the mechanism that's creating the world that you're in. So imagine that every thought you have is a prayer that has power. So to me, this whole thing, pray continually, isn't a command. It's a simple statement. You are praying continuously. So whatever you're thinking and putting in your mind is what you're praying for. If you're looking at the world and seeing it as being destructive and angry and hateful, that's what you're praying for. So you got to change your perception of that. Here comes in the record part that kind of going back to what Pamela has mentioned. And Laurie and I got on this subject last night. It was really interesting. She's always talked about like rungs on a ladder. Like in any given experience, there could be multiple experiences of a particular reality, right? You can be in the lowest end of it, or you can be on the highest end. And based on your consciousness is at what level you're going to experience that. Does that make sense? Because every one of us could see something or go through the same experience, but every one of us is going to experience it on a different level, and it's going to mean something different to all of us. So as we were talking, we usually talk about that in a linear way, but what popped in my head is the record player, or a record. And you know, the record is round, and it's got very distinct lines in it that make the music. So what happens is you could look at this record, this round record, being a more 3D representation of the tiered level. Let's say the source of the record is, the center of the record is source, and here we are on different levels. You know, see the little scratch marks? And I looked something up online, and I found it really fascinating. Can y'all see that here? This little, that's what the record looks like when it's blown up, the little trenches. So literally, we wind up, when we have a particular belief system, we get stuck in one of these trenches. Does that make sense? So let's say that every one of these little trenches is actually a reality. So in this one record, there's a multitude, I made a new word. There's a multitude of different little trenches or realities to be experienced. Does that make sense? And I'm going to tune in, there's the whole concept of music, I'm going to tune into the trench that I am feeding or I'm believing, and I'm reinforcing with my words and my action. Does that make sense? So, you know, they say sin, bad, and good, you know, all those things are what keep us away from God, the source. And I'm actually seeing that a different way. They say that these things like sin, bad, the concept of good and bad, those are things that separate us from God. If I'm bad, if I'm sinful, that separates me from God. And they do, but not in the way you might imagine. For me, it's the concept, the mental belief system in those things, or the self-judgment that puts you in a rut. Not the deeds and the actions, but your belief about those. Does that make sense? Is more powerful. So what I'm trying to come back to is the thought, the self-mastery that we're all after, or most of us here that I'm aware of are after. It all has to do with thought. First and foremost is all about thought. Yeah, Pamela.
Put the stuck in the rut. Do you remember what happened with the record? Have you got to skip in it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's why I've titled that "Stuck in the Rut." There's like you keep going through the same thing over and over. We can be stuck in a rut with one person in our life because of our belief systems. Change those belief systems, you begin to change. And not to say this is the way it works, but let's say you're way out here in the perimeter, and it's like you're stepping yourself closer and closer to source. I know actually as you play the record how it goes from outside to inside. Just a little mental concept to play with. But we're getting stuck in these ruts by the belief systems that we buy into And we reinforce where we are based on the words inside and outside of us. So what was really coming in strong is for me during that session, is our words create worlds. So our words are the first level of physical manifestation. So in other words, we have the chakra system, the seven major chakras. There's more than that, but the 7 major. The crown chakra is thought. The third eye is visual. And then we have the throat. Then we have the heart, the solar plexus, the emotions, the second chakra, and then earth, the root chakra. So very few people are able to see exactly what you visualize. We may be able to tune into each other and get glimpses, but very few can see exactly what you see. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely.
Individually. Even how y'all are viewing this lecture, some of you may go, this guy is fucking crazy. Others may go, oh, this is interesting. Everybody's viewing it at a different level, right? I can't see that all the way. It's even fewer that can know exactly what each one of us is thinking. Does that make sense? Okay? So, if very few of us can know exactly how somebody's visualizing something or know exactly what somebody else is thinking, how can we share something and move forward? The voice is the first part we do that with. Does that make sense? Because it goes from being inside of me to the first vibrations in the physical reality that I can talk to somebody else about it, I can work on it, and we can make something. Does that make sense? So the voice is not only the key going up the missing fruit, but it's also the information coming down. I got to have my voice. And, we're talking about the lower chakras being masculine and the upper being feminine. If I don't have a voice, I don't have any power either. So a lot of people that are in the spiritual movement are more spiritual than the average people out there. We're really good on the upper chakra system, but we suck on the lower. And the thing is if you don't have any power in the lower, you can't bring your thoughts, your visuals, and your voice all the way into the world. You've got to get good at putting those things into reality. However, like I said, not many people can see exactly what you're thinking. Not everybody can know what you're thinking. But if you're in a room of people, everyone can hear you. Okay? The body is the Word made flesh, and I would like to say I believe that 100%, but I'm in my own growth process. If I believe that 100%, I believe that if I believe that 100%, I could change my body like that. Does that make sense? If I completely knew that. And so that whole phrase that we started with, that I rest in knowing that my word is my world, if I could own that 100%, I could change anything. Does that make sense? Because if I trusted my word could do it, there would be no doubt. Doubt is the biggest thing against us right now. Doubt and the other voices that other people put inside your head that go against your natural voice. Just like that girl that the natural body put up a shield and she let it down. Because, I'm not whatever, I'm not spirit. No, that's what screwed her over. And, y'all have heard me say this before, but I think Jesus had big cojones, Jesus had big balls because, walk up to somebody that's on the ground and say, stand up, with a very commanding voice. That takes a lot of power. You've got to rest in knowing that your word's going to make that change. Otherwise, you can't say shit. Does that make sense? You just look like a fool. So mantras are scripts, where you repeat words over and over like Om, Om Mani Padme Hum, things like that. And repeating words, so let me ask you this. Are you repeating words that you were told, like through religion or your parents, teachers? Are you stuck in the same old record, the same old rut? Or are you making up your own words, rules about reality? Because going back to that session with the woman, if it is all my reality is based upon what I'm believing, my words and everything that back it up, then I'm completely free. All I have to do is change my words, change my beliefs, and my reality changes. I'm not locked into reality like I was thinking before. And I think that goes for all of us. So positive affirmations work as long as you're saying them. That's the tricky part about affirmations. Because if you've got something in the back of your head that says, I have to work really hard to make money, and then in the forefront, in your consciousness, you periodically go, money easily comes to me. Money easily comes to me. As soon as you stop consciously saying that, your unconscious is going to start back up with the negative. Does that make sense? And if you don't get those two to mesh with each other, then you're not going to get the reality you want. You've got to mesh your unconscious and your conscious together. Unconscious and conscious together. And that's part of the path also, is making those one complete thing. And in my words, it'd be where you're no longer unconscious at all. You're completely conscious, 100%.
I got a question. Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about our words,
Mhm.
how important they are, and that our words can be like toxic poison.
Totally.
In other words, if I say a bunch of bad things over you, but you don't agree with that,
Mhm.
then that negativity comes back on me. How do you feel about that subject?
Actually, I have that a little bit in here. Yes. The thing is going back to someone controlling you, they can't control you unless you agree upon the words, on the words they're saying, okay? As far as does it come back to me, it doesn't necessarily matter to me in that state. It's just, the number one thing is, if I believe it, then it affects me. For example, a lot of y'all could probably relate to this. Let's say that, or like the woman that came in when I was doing a session on. So here she is, putting a shield up, and then her mind goes, well, you're being whatever. You're not being spiritually open or whatever that is. And then she lets the shield down. She had to somewhat believe that on some level to let that happen. You know what I mean? For example, if let's say, what can I say?
I have a good example.
Yeah.
I'm heavy, I'm overweight.
Mhm.
If I listen to 99% of what messages people give about people who are overweight, I'm lazy, etc., all the negative things.
Right.
It's my fault, I can just change it,
Mhm.
whatever. But this is who my body is.
Mhm.
So if I believed in it, then I would give those words would be poison to me. But I love who I am.
Mhm.
I would like to be thinner,
Mhm.
but I am who I am. Is that a good
Yeah,
example?
that's a good example. Right, you're not buying into it. Or another example would be, let's say somebody's bullying you, and they're bullying you by calling you a stupid idiot. But you don't have a charge on that word. It wouldn't affect you. However, if your dad maybe called you that all when you were growing up, and you had a charge on the word stupid idiot, then it would affect you, right? Because you believe those words somewhat. So, and here's the crazy thing. If somebody affects you, you can just think about it. If somebody's affecting you with their words, then you have to believe it on some level. As simple as that. If it affects you, then you're believing it somewhere. And you need to work on clearing that particular charge. Like somebody saying, well, that's selfish. Well, it's only going to affect you if you believe you're selfish. Or believe that your action is selfish.
But why is selfish a bad word? Sometimes you need to be selfish.
It's true, but I mean, even that's a program too. To think selfishness is, yeah.
Well, like your example right there, putting up the shield. Is
Mhm.
that's selfish that I did not give up myself? But sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
Because it's self-preservation.
Mhm.
But it's all the context of that one word.
Right, and words can be really manipulated. That's how we're easily manipulated. Especially smooth talkers can, know how to work the words. So what are your life mantras? What are the things you're repeating internally all the time? Like, how many times do you do something and you think inside your head, God, I can't believe I did that. I'm so stupid. That word is affecting your body, no doubt. We're in the group, we're having the core group, we're having this experience where instantaneously, when somebody thinks something, and it started with Deborah, we were in a circle, she was sitting up here, and I took out a clipboard and I wrote, so her eyes are closed. I think she had like a bandana on too, but I wrote on the clipboard, I said, we're going to focus on a part of you, and then we're going to mix in like a temperature. So I wrote down head and warm. And as soon as I wrote it down, Bambi was sitting next to me, I didn't even have time to show Bambi what I'd written, and she says, my head is warm. And I was like, oh, that was the first clue that we started tapping in to the thought field, instantly transfers energy. We're moving out of this thing of like, okay, I'm going to send energy to somebody. Why do that? Why do that if your thought has already moved the energy? It's get in line with that because that's a lot faster than this. Okay, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but like the computers, right? I can type. That's the physical, right? But then there's touch screen. But now what's coming out more and more? What's like the next? Huh? Exactly. You said there. Got right on. Voice activated, which we're back to the word, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going from here. I have to physically interact with it. And then here, it's more easy to interact with it. But now I don't even have to freaking touch it. I just say it, right? You know what the next level is, right? Thought. Yeah, exactly. We're gonna. I totally know that's gonna happen because I know where this is going now.
We do.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We do. Bionic stuff.
Hmm?
It's happening. People who have bionic arms and stuff like that,
Oh yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's we're definitely moving into it, but we're going to be doing it more and more for sure. So I can totally see a reality where everything is beyond voice reactive, just to thought reactive. And to me, that's going to be so. It's another manifestation of what's happening inside. So the word, to me, is the first level outside of thought. So now the group is working on thought and word being transferred immediately. So here I wrote the word down, and then I didn't even say it to the next person, and Deborah had already picked it up. The heat and that. So that means I can change energy as simply as that. I don't have to sit here and type a bunch of stuff up. I just have to think it. And the crazy thing about, your arms are part of your throat chakra, okay? That's how you express yourself. You write when you talk. Like when I talk, I use my hands. Writing is a form of expression, as is painting and things like that. So your hands are part of your throat chakra. So what are your life mantras? Just think about that in your own head. What are you saying in your head all the time, and what do you say out loud all the time? Because literally, every word you say or think inside your head is a prayer, and it's moving energy. If I just simply wrote head and warm, and she thought that instantaneously, that means every little thought I have is already moved into the quantum reality. Does that make sense? And this is why we're not seeing consistent, repeated creation happening all the time. Why it's not predictable? Because what I do is I think something, and I instantly make it start moving. But what happens if I don't see the movement? I'm going to start beaming in another direction, like, oh, this is never going to happen. So what happens is we got to know and rest in that knowing that as soon as I think it, it's already starting to move the energy. If I let it go, if I can rest in knowing that my word, my thought just did that and let it go, then it will happen. We mess up because we throw that out and then we start playing with other things. So the thing is, like, imagine that I am in this huge dome, and I've got a picture to describe that. Actually, I'm just going to jump forward to it since it's coming up now. So imagine like this little picture here. I'm sitting in this huge dome of TVs, okay? And whatever I'm focusing my attention on is what comes to me. It's like the hologram. I'm pointing a laser beam at that point, and that's what's happening, okay? But what happens is if I'm pointing there and I'm not seeing what I want, I might wind up shooting something over here. So all the time we're causing this thing to happen where we're not moving forward because we are messing with this a little while, then this a little while, this a while. Does that make sense? We got to get to where I can shoot this and I know it's going to happen. It's like it's an arrogance. It's like moving back to that level where we're coming up to we're not like these groveling little beings that are trying to get back into God's bosom. It's like, no, I'm owning this power of who I am, and I'm not apologizing for it. That's the multiverse. So here we are with Stuck in the Rut. Back to this. So we're getting closer and closer in the core group to having instantaneous physical reactions, results of a thought, because we are starting to feel the instantaneous mental transmission. To me, that's the most exciting thing that's happening in group in years, is that starting to happen. Katie, two weekends ago, she sat up here, and we actually took it to the next level because she had her hands up left and right. And I said, Katie, I was going to do the whole thing where we, send our energy like this, the third grade level. And I said, we're going to focus on one of your hands. So in my mind, I didn't even write it down this time, I decided I was going to do the left hand. And then she instantly goes, did you already pick? She said, did you already pick? And I said, yeah. She said, is it the left hand? I go, yeah. And then I said, okay, we're going to up the ante. I'm going to call anybody's name in the group randomly, and then you're going to randomly think of a body part on Katie. And we did that, and she got it. Meaning that all the person has to do is think of the something, and it's actually starting to physically affect somebody. That's crazy. If you really own that, that's like, wow, that's moving to the next level. No more of this, like, I'm sending energy to someone. You don't need to do that. That's like third grade.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that, well, you seem to pick up thoughts from everyone, but do you, Kate, pick up thoughts, or do the rest of you, or is it just within your group?
I tend to pick up other people's feelings.
Feelings,
Not necessarily
yeah,
their
not
thoughts, but
Feelings.
definitely their feelings in a crowd, anywhere.
So we're all geared a little bit different.
Okay.
I'm more cognition. In other words, I get thoughts in my head that I know aren't mine, but they come into my head like they're mine. I mean, seriously, like I'm sitting here and the pop. It's not, you know, if I got it differently, I would think that someone's whispering into my ear. But I don't get it that way. It just pops in my head as a thought, but I really know it's not my thought. So it's more. But everybody has their own little level of. Yeah, Pamela.
Do you ever wake up knowing that you had other people's dreams?
No, I never. I really don't remember much of my dreams. It's like downtime for my mind since I'm always using it. My dreams I rarely remember.
No,
If I. Yeah, that's interesting.
Along the same lines as that, everyone picks it up differently. Some people take it as smells, some people might get a taste from a person, textures. It's a sense, and it's not necessarily, for me, it's not necessarily it's like you said, a feeling, not necessarily a thought. Every so often you get somebody where you get to connect very clearly that you have a specific word, or you have a specific phrase, like left hand.
Mhm.
And that's just developing a connection and your own talents.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, so the group is really expanding in that direction because what's happening as a result of that, I'm resting more and knowing that as soon as I have a thought in a session, it's already started to move. And what I'm seeing is, you know, when we're punching the keyboard, we move from the keyboard to the touch screen to simply voice activated or thought activated. What I'm seeing more now, like seeing into the future kind of thing, is the EFT will actually fade out for the group. Because we no longer need the actual interaction. It's just simply transferring the thought and the things change. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, who is in control? My word cannot, and this going back to what Annette brought up. Who is in control? My words cannot control you unless you agree with or believe in them. Okay? But the thing is here's the thing though. Even if you believe it a little bit, you're screwed. Okay? So if you believe something 10%, it's going to affect you 10%. Does that make sense? So if you make... That's the power of doubt. You can make somebody doubt themselves just 10% and you've taken their legs out in creating something, right? You're like all excited. I'm going to open a cupcake, champagne, whatever the hell, store, right? And you tell somebody and they can just simply go, pfft, and boom, man, that little energy, if you let it, takes all the wind out of you. So just 10% of doubt, 5% can take all the energy out. That's why you got to rest in knowing. Here's the thing. Knowing is 100%. Feeling, the feeling realm, and the feeling realm is not wrong or at all because it's a part of it. But feeling is not 100%. Like, have you ever had the experience of you're wanting to do something and you get a feeling, but it's not 100%. It's like it could go either way. I love the knowing feeling because when I know what the hell to do. A feeling is iffy. It leaves it in the iffy realm.
I'm stuck.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say to you because my head is going in 15 fucking different directions right now. I'm a feeling person.
Right.
My knowing comes from feeling. It is not the other way around. I don't feel things because I know them. I know them because I feel them.
And Bambi and I talked about that. It's coming from, we're saying the same thing, and her and I had to agree upon this because she said it the same way.
Okay.
It's both sides of the same coin.
Okay.
I know something and I can have a feeling from it, or you can feel something and have a knowing come from it. For example, everybody close your eyes for a second. This small second, okay? Now, I want you to visualize that you're out in a forest and you're barefoot. But the grass is soft, it's kind of cool to the touch, a little damp, but it feels comfortable because it's summertime, the sun is out. The clouds are in front of the sun a little bit, but you can feel the heat on your skin. You can feel the coolness under your feet. You can even smell the fresh air. It kind of smells like rain in the distance. And up in front of you, you see some squirrels playing with each other, running around, and you kind of giggle to yourself, and a sense of calm comes over you. All right, now come back. Did you feel any of that?
Yes.
What was that? I was giving you simply thoughts. You see what I'm trying to say? I was giving you a thought and you had a feeling from it. Does that make sense? It can go either way though. Does that make sense? Okay. By simply thinking something, you change your emotions like BAM! Okay? Like something I used to play with. I don't have this issue anymore, but there was a time when I was kind of like the impatient male. And I'd be in traffic and somebody pulls in front of me or something, kind of the old limited, I'm half asleep kind of feeling, and you get irritated at that person pulling in front of you. And a game I started playing with myself is like, if I got irritated, I go, maybe that person's rushing to the hospital because a loved one's in pain. What would happen to my feeling? Do you know what? It would dissipate because I changed my thought. But simply by changing my thought, my feeling changes. Does that make sense?
You're great, but you're not helping me in this moment.
Okay. What is the part you don't get?
I actually wrote down 100% and then I wrote 1% down underneath it. I don't even know why. Back to the very beginning, I think when you started talking about your session and her feeling guilty, so she opened up the wall and let the sickness in, I think I got stuck. Even though you've been talking for an hour and a half since then, I think I got stuck when you used the word guilt. I believe that feelings are secondary to thoughts, to programs. I honestly believe that.
Well, I know that's what I'm talking about.
However, through your course of talking tonight, there's where my 1% of doubt sort of creeped in just a little bit for the first time since I don't know when. I might have been raised in a religion, but I am not a religious program person.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
It's like a non-issue. I never bought into any of the shit that was told to me even as a child.
Yeah.
I dropped out of Sunday school at 10.
Right.
My parents programming me is a non-issue. My mother felt guilty about nothing she did in her life. There's a non-issue there. I can't sit here and tell you that I feel guilty for hurting somebody. I'm just throwing this out there as an example because I've been told it was non-Christian or I won't get into heaven or I'm not a good person. But can a feeling ever simply come from a feeling? Can a feeling create a thought? Can you have guilt for not hurting somebody, for not wanting to hurt somebody?
See, but
just because it doesn't
guilt
feel
is not a
good?
true natural thing.
You don't, okay. You don't want to hurt somebody just because it doesn't feel good to you to hurt another person.
But that's a misunderstanding. That's a misunderstanding.
But it's
No, it's a perception. It's a misperception that if you do what's right for you, you're going to hurt somebody else or it's wrong. That's bullcrap. That's in the realm of good and bad. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Good and bad is a realm we want to move out of, which means there is no such thing as guilt. There's no such thing as karma. All these things are evolved out of, not getting into them anymore. So guilt is not a true feeling. It's not a true emotion. If you feel guilted by something, that's damn sure that you've got something fucking wrong in your head.
Is there a difference in feeling bad and feeling guilty? And thinking
Slightly. Here's the thing though. Here's the thing. If you judge it as okay, let me use a different word besides guilt, because we came up to that. But she mentioned before that she just simply felt bad for not being open. But what was underneath that feeling of bad was the guilt. So bad is a judgment of self. Simply is what it is. If you judge something bad, then that's coming from if you feel something is bad, to me that's a judgment. Because here's the thing. Like say somebody does something to you and it makes you feel a particular way. Okay? Now, I can take that feeling and let it move me in a particular way, or I can start attaching all these things onto the feeling. So all I'm trying to say, if it's a natural feeling, you simply move with it, and there is no good or bad about it. It is simply a feeling.
Selfish. This is when selfish is important. Okay, you're a caring person like me. You feel like you should reach out to that person, but your selfishness is overriding it, saying I need to protect myself. So the guilt is not necessarily because you think you're going to be punished. It's should I feel more for that person or should I feel more for myself? But we're giving people. Does that make sense?
It's very entrapping because really, it's our limitation is it's woven into our words, because the word selfish to me is on a lower layer, on a lower reality. When you really come into knowing who you are and what you are, the whole concept of selfish doesn't even come into it, because you realize you're a living being and you have the right to do things that are right for you. The difference is you don't impose on anybody else's right, because if everybody has free will, then everybody has the free will to do what's right for them. There's no judgment if that's being selfish or bad. If somebody fed themselves, would you judge them for feeding themselves if they were hungry? Of course not. But it goes way beyond that. So, yeah, most in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, don't believe what I have to say, if you feel bad for a particular thing, that tells you there's a mental construct in here that you need to get the hell out of you. It's a belief system. I can see that halfway.
I have a quote that I want to share.
She's pondering.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll share it on the Blackwell Heart, and
Okay.
it might help out a little bit, but I think we need to.
Okay, go ahead. All right, we'll see y'all.
Thank you so much.
It's nice meeting y'all.
Thank you for putting
Uh-huh.
up with my.
You can put up with anything.
Yeah. Well, you know.
It's
me.
nice meeting all of you.
Thanks for coming.
It's good to see you.
I have to get a Katie to
It's good to see you, sweetie.
Yeah, yes, Jerry.
So lately, I've had an issue come up with someone that I consider a very, very close friend.
Uh-huh.
And you're going back to that, I want to open a cupcake shop, and then they're going to go, well, you really don't want to do that.
Right.
And the other day, I was talking with her and telling her that I had run across some old T-shirts of my kid that belong to my boys, and I said, well, you know, I think I might do like a little quilt or something for the kid, you know, just to, because I have them. And she's like, oh, you don't want to do that. And I was like, it just like almost like a slap in the face. And I was like, she's like, well, you know, they won't. And I thought, first of all, you don't know my children. I know my kids better than just about anybody. And I know that if I did something, you know, made something for them, what they would do with it. You
Right.
know? That'd be the only reason I would want to make a quilt or something, because I know that they would appreciate it. And so I got to thinking about the conversation that she and I had had, and I realized, you know, going back over, you know, the length of time that I've known her, just the past couple of years, that's what she does. You know, every time I've mentioned something, oh, I think it'd be fun to do, oh, no, you know, if you did something like that, then blah, 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 you know, and I thought, whoa, that's just not good, you know?
Yeah.
And so I reached a point where, you know, from that conversation, I don't divulge anything to her anymore.
Yeah. So
You know, so that's my protection.
yeah.
But,
But
you know-
what's happened though is you're not yourself around that person anymore.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not even a healthy relationship.
And so,
anymore.
but what the interesting thing is, the way it has evolved is she's become so involved and enmeshed in some other, you know, some personal issues and work and stuff like that, that where we used to like go out to eat almost every night, or I would see her almost every day, now we very rarely even text or talk on the phone.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of evolved
Yeah.
to where I think, you know, in myself, I was like, this relationship is not healthy. And so the universe has kind of set it up to where I'm not really in it anymore.
Right.
Not that I've like told her, well, I can't be your friend anymore or anything like that. That hasn't come to pass. It's,
And part of that comes by you honoring your feelings around that.
Yeah,
You know?
Like me, who blocked that person from my Facebook account.
well, I mean, if it got nasty, I have blocked people from my Facebook because of, you know,
after 3 years.
And I agree. There have been some people where it's like, you know what? Every time they post something, it just it's negative or whatever. It's not. I have blocked a couple of people because of that.
And then what
that's
hap-
not an issue, but I'm making that choice.
Yeah.
To not allow that into
Right,
my field.
but
of
to me what
consciousness.
happens is you just drop it. You disconnect from that particular
Yeah.
person, because a lot of times it'll happen where somebody will set you off and you start arguing. And when you're arguing or fighting against something, if you're fighting against war, you're just as much creating it than anything. It's simply disconnecting from it, because if your words are creating the reality, you've got to drop all your words around a particular thing if you don't want it in your reality. You don't keep reinforcing it.
Okay, John, I have another question.
Yeah.
Okay, so when somebody says, you know, I'm gonna open a cupcake shop, or and then that person rolls their eyes,
Yeah.
and I say, I saw you roll your eyes, is that acknowledging it, or you just?
No, to me, that
Is
takes
is that starting the argument?
Yeah, well, to me, that takes a little bit, it takes guts to at least put somebody out
Right.
on the spot there. Because a lot of times what'll happen, and there's a mix, you know, I could give everybody a different answer, but based on your energy, to me, that would be a positive thing for you, because you're moving into this realm of using your voice more and not doing something. Because here's the thing, sometimes in not speaking up, you've given word to that. Okay, for example, there was some racist comments when I was a kid, when I was younger, but at the time I didn't feel comfortable in fighting against it. Does that make sense? So if somebody said something stupid and racist, I wouldn't fight against it, or I wouldn't voice my opinion. You know what I mean? So if I didn't voice, so in other words, let's say in this room we're voting on something, okay, and some people are really honest and they vote on it, and there's a few that don't. you've still voted. You see what I'm trying to say? You still, in the silence, you've done something. So to me, in that case, it would be more powerful for you to say something or to point it out, because that's kind of what your energy is into right now, is not letting people get away with the slights of what they're doing. It's like, no, I see you. You know what I mean? Not that you go into full-blown battle, but you say, hey, because sometimes there's bully energy, and all you got to do is say, hey, I see it, and that stops it.
Why is it that when some people, though, that you try to have a discussion, an open discussion, and you say, look, I see that we have drifted way far apart, and these are some issues that I've seen, they immediately clam up and run away. And a year later, you'll hear from them.
Mm-hmm. But to me, when somebody doesn't say something, they're not ready to grow. In a relationship where the communication stops, it's not going to grow.
Right.
Communication is the first thing that happens, or a disconnect from communication is the first thing when something starts to die. In your body, when there's not proper communication between the cells, you're going to start dying. A particular part of your body is going to start. Communication is the number one thing for any living thing. So we have to communicate with one another to know what's, in our family, you have to communicate with one another to see what's happening. Once the communication breaks down, that's the sign that the whole thing is going to break down. So let me jump forward here. We still have quite a few more things to cover. So who's in control? Like Annette, going back to what Annette said, you can't control me unless I believe those words. To the degree I believe them is to the degree they're going to affect me. Okay? Even if I believe it a little bit, it can still get me. So if I have a little bit of doubt in my mind, let's say I have a little bit of doubt in my mind that I'm being like selfish, okay? That I'm a selfish person. If somebody calls me selfish, it's gonna kind of affect me a little bit. You know what I mean? But if I'm comfortable with myself and I know that I deserve to do what feels right for me in my life, and that's it, I rest in that knowing. No matter what anybody says about that's going to affect me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You've got to rest in the knowing, though. So that to me, and this may fly in the face of some people, but that whole thing about not my will but thy will, to me that's in the lower energy. It's like an infant level of our growth. To me, we're here to develop the will, not throw it away. Not come into a life, have a body, have a will, and then, think about it. Here we are working on clearing our issues and developing as beings. If the whole concept is it's not my will, then why even bother with that? Does that make sense? I might as well just be trying to destroy myself, not make myself any better. So to me, that's old energy. And when this whole thing about don't waste your breath arguing, because sometimes what happens, all that does is add fire. You can point out when somebody does something, but like Marianne says, you roll your eyes and then you confront them on that. But if they want to argue, then you disconnect from the argument. Because all you've done is but you've at least said, hey, I see you. You can't slap me without me saying something this time. And here's where we get into a problem, because people are afraid of not having a foundation. So our belief systems make up our reality. And this is why certain people of different belief systems can't really see eye to eye, because what happens is if you start challenging somebody's belief system, like some of the videos I'm putting out, like this even, can challenge somebody's belief system. If they're watching the YouTube video, they're going to simply turn it off, or think I'm crazy, or yell at the computer. It doesn't matter, So, and what happens is when you do that, though, when you're not open to that communication, you've stopped allowing yourself to grow. Just like in a relationship. If you close yourself off to communication, or somebody's closed themselves off to communication with you, it's not going to go anywhere, because you've got to have the communication to grow. But the main thing that prevents us from growing is our belief systems, because if we challenge each other's belief systems, we get nervous, because our belief systems make up our reality, and we don't like them being shaken. But there's a positive side to that, because the less belief systems you have, reality gets really fuzzy. Why everybody loves belief systems is because it makes the world solid. But they talk about quantum mechanics where nothing is as solid as it really is. I did that. God is knocking. But they say like this wall isn't as solid as it really is, right? Basically, if you magnify the atoms that this is made of, it's 99.9% nothing, okay? Why it's solid is because there's an agreeance on it being that solid. It's the visual of it. So what happens is if you take all the belief systems away from somebody, and this is why I think it has to happen slowly over steps of evolution, so to speak, because if you took away somebody's beliefs, they'd be like totally freaked out for a while. Like when I lost my whole concept when I was raised Baptist, I lost the whole God, Jesus concept in the old view of it being somebody here to save me, and I'm supposed to be more responsible for myself. I went through some grief around that. But our belief systems once they're taken away, we're actually moving more into the quantum field. And there's that flip that happens, right? There's like relativity, and then there's quantum. The relativity is you can measure something, and we can fly to the moon using relative mathematics, mathematics based in relativity. We can't go to the moon based on quantum mechanics because it's all crazy. But the crazy thing is, in the quantum mechanic field, anything is possible. And the math related to like flying to the moon, relativity, it's not unlimited. It's very limited. So the less belief systems you have, the more you can create in your world. Does that make sense? Like if you don't believe that you're limited, like let's say that there's no belief in there that says I'm limited or I'm stupid or I can't do that, you've already opened up your world to how much more possibility, right? So the less beliefs you have, the more you move from concrete reality to quantum reality, meaning at any given moment it can change. But that freaks the hell out of people in the beginning because we like to depend on what's going to, we want to wake up and put our foot on the floor and know the floor is there, right? When I was doing this session, this also came up, which is walk the talk. And this is something I'm really working on doing too. I shouldn't say fighting, but there's moments of struggling with this. And going back to this, I rest in knowing that my word is my world. And I think I've already done this, but the word and the world are very similar. There's only one letter added to make the world. So this is all that takes. I rest in knowing that my word is my world. You catch and correct. It's about catching and correcting yourself when you do an action that is not rooted in knowing my words are my world. Does that make sense? So if you're thinking and knowing, whatever my words are, create my world, and then you do an action that is not based in that truth, you've stepped outside of your walk. Does that make sense? Okay? Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got to take over the creative process by taking over the word, and by taking over the word, you take control of your world, not my world, your world. Because it's not about you affecting my world, it's about me growing up and affecting my world, because every one of us, even though we're in the same space right now, are having a completely different experience. And when you go home, you're going to be having a different experience also. It's about you creating your world individually. I'm going to bring this in a little bit here, because this is kind of a popular thought moving into reality, that maybe we're in a simulation. Like this is a very elaborate like computer program that we come in, have experiences, and grow from. And the interesting thing is, like this is a video game here, it's a cover front, and it's like thousands of emotional, stimulating games full of rich texture. It's like there's thousands of games out there right now that you can buy, take home, plug into a console, and play. I mean, they're they look real. And really, I don't think we're too far in our own technology, too far in the future where we can actually plug in such a way that it feels completely real, all the way plugged in. And I really don't doubt that they already have that technology already out there.
We just saw a movie about these computer programs. They put a chip in somebody and they go do these sims. It's like running a whole town of people that are, you remember the video sims?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have real people doing this and have real guys fighting battles and stuff just like, Call of Duty or those games.
I've seen that movie. It's the one where he's in prison.
Yeah.
It
was
it's
really sick.
Yeah, it was. There's a part of it was so disturbing to me. It's like I shouldn't have watched that part. It was related to her. But anyway, to some degree, you could say that we're jacked into this particular thing. And where Laurie and I were talking is like the movie Hunger Games. I don't know how many of y'all saw that. I guess most everybody. Okay, so they have this control room where they have this dome, and they're putting different things inside the game, right? Like they start a fire to direct somebody in the different direction. What's interesting is I didn't catch this the first time, but seeing the movie the second time, I caught it. Like these little, and towards the end of the movie, they put these little dog kind of creatures into it, like tigers in a way. And what's interesting is they have it here on this console, and they put it into the dome, okay? And I slowed it down this time. I paused it. And when I first watched the movie, I thought simply that what they were doing is having somebody let these creatures go in there. But if you watch the particular part of the movie, what happens is the creatures just come out of the ground. In other words, they don't really say it, but they're actually fighting in a simulation. a simulation where the animals actually kill other people, even though it's a simulation. So
Did you see the second Hunger Games?
not yet.
Okay.
He's like, I can't tell you.
I haven't seen it either.
So, but to me, I don't think, this would be up for debate, but for me, I don't think there's a lot of people out here controlling our game anymore. Because here's the thing. I can go to a store, get a CD, pop it into my console, the map is already created. And there's games out there so elaborate that you can go from planet to planet and have different experiences. It's all on the CD. There's no other being from the outside controlling the game. Just by me being in the game, I'm cued into what's happening, right? By me being here, I'm the only controller of my game. Does that make sense? If I'm not buying into other people's words and beliefs. Right? I'm the controller of that. There's nobody out there trying to control me. Which begs to differ this whole concept of God or gods being out there making things happen to us. If it's all nicely set up into a reality where the thinking process is, because I'm starting to see this whole pattern more and more on a bigger level, that we're doing it as a collective and individually. In other words, it doesn't have to be anybody out there doing it to us. We're like in it playing I'm not saying that we're in a simulation, but I'm just playing with the idea a little bit. And it's simply how I'm reacting with my belief systems and words that changes everything.
I'm getting more and more where I'm trying to control my thoughts because my thoughts is what I believe creates my reality.
Totally. So, right. To me, the thoughts are
But learning to control them is not easy.
Yeah. And because we've all been controlled by other people implanting beliefs, which make us think things, and then we say things.
So we have been controlled by thoughts, and now we're trying to change.
It's like
Yeah.
TV programming. Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of like, what's interesting is you have like in-game movie coming out and things like that. It's like to end the game, to get out of this particular game, is you master yourself all the way. Which means, also, to me, what it comes back to, self-mastery is, what are you really mastering? Your thought.
Right.
You're able to master your thoughts. That's what self-mastery is. That's all it's about, is you're just simply mastering the thought. Because the thought changes everything. If I think something about Annette's shoulder, boom, she's already got the energy going there. And if I'm really focused, I can make that shoulder hot. I can make it cold. I can make it heal. I can make it even whatever, right? Now, that's agreeance upon her energy, though. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to do anything negative, but
Right.
people can do that, though. They can play the negative side, too.
But my question to you is why, if we're trying to become self-mastery, are the things that trip us up from being mastery of ourselves, not you, I'm not trying to master you, I'm not trying
Right.
to master Katie, I'm trying to master me. The things that come up, like me,
Mhm.
I went to 2 o'clock today before I had my first cigarette.
Mhm.
Yay and it, that's the first day I've ever done that.
Yeah.
But I caved, and then when I caved, I beat myself up
Right.
really bad.
Mhm.
That little voice in here.
Right.
But how do we get to the mastery point? I'm feeding my mind all the right things.
Mhm.
You hear what I'm
But
trying
yeah, but it's already things that are put in your head. It's like that going back to the record. You've got a groove there, okay? It's a groove that you're really used to. So even if you go to the next one, that little needle as it goes in, sometimes it can skip. So what you're doing is you're going along trying to move into a new groove, and you skip because you've so long been in that other consciousness. So as you're training, it's like you have to really work at that first level to get into the new groove. You get. Go ahead.
Sorry. I think for you, that to me would be such a minor change of perception. Instead of, damn it, I only made it until 2, it was like, yes, I made it until 2.
Oh, I was celebrating
so you
in a
don't beat
way.
yourself up.
Yeah.
Tomorrow
Yeah.
you say, I'll make it until 2:30.
See, I'm playing
And
games
then
with
it's
myself, but
Well, that's what it is. It's all a mind game.
yeah.
So the thing is, like Katie says, you just simply change your thought in the moment. Because here's the thing, and this comes in more and more. The more you entertain a thought, the longer you entertain a thought, the more it's going to own you. Because what happens is a thought elicits feelings. So if a thought comes and you let it in, slowly you're going to then have the emotion. And then once you have the emotion, it's harder to kick it out of your head. So if you have a thought come in like, that was stupid, you stop it right there.
Right.
And that's where you got the 100% consciousness has to come in. You can't be unconscious anymore, because as soon as you have an unconscious thought, in other words, it slips past you, that's what starts having the problem, because it corrodes your emotions.
So are you saying, am I hearing that when that thought comes in, you go into consciousness and you stop it immediately.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Number
Right.
one. That's the number one way to live. And see, that's being 100% conscious. That is the enlightenment. If you want to be 100% enlightened, you know exactly what's coming in your head, whether it's from in here or out there, and you choose whether to, consciously choose whether to reinforce that with your words or more thoughts, or you choose to turn it off completely.
What I kept telling myself from the time I got up this morning is I make the conscious choice not to light it
Mhm.
right now in this moment.
Right.
And I made it to 2 o'clock
Mhm.
by just doing that.
Right.
And somehow at that particular point,
Mhm.
maybe I scared myself.
Well, going back to what I said up here, where did I put that?
We went and looked at that cabin. There was a lady that wanted to sell a cabin, and I think we sold it to her for 18,000 or
And she
something.
wants 30.
No, it's 30,000. And I went over there. It looks worse than it did when we sold it to her.
Right.
And now she got all stressed out because.
Right.
But
So,
anyway,
so emotional triggers can cause the mind to go, or really,
she's
to
not
me,
gonna have a cigarette.
to me, the emotion wasn't first. The emotion was secondary. It was your thought associated to her doing that. Your thoughts of her. You know what I'm trying to say? The thoughts of her doing that got you, not this, because the emotion was.
Right, because I was thinking to myself, you lived here a year
Mhm.
and you paid 18 and
Right.
you want me to get you 30. Are you
Right.
freaking kidding me?
Right.
We got people that are waiting. There's nothing for sale out there. We got people in line waiting to buy
But not at
something.
30.
Right.
And
Not when
wanna
you
say,
don't
well,
own
here's
your own
something
land.
they sold it for 15,000 and you can buy it for 30. That's,
Yeah.
and to me, that's just like too much greed, and I have a
Mhm.
problem with that.
And like I said here, the positive affirmations work as long as you're saying them. So here you were saying that consciously, right? But what happened is that experience threw that consciousness into the unconscious, and you lost it for a moment. And as soon as you lost it, and you let your emotions get tied up in her, you lost that groove. So the thing is, going back to what Marianne said, you've got to be 100% conscious all the freaking time. I don't mean part-time. I mean 24/7. You've got to be aware of your consciousness, because as soon as you dropped it, you should have been, oof, I'm losing it, and you pull yourself back. But what happened is you went emotional really quick, and that made you lose it. So basically you dropped the ball. You dropped that consciousness ball, and you picked up another one.
We were all happy. We were thinking, oh, wow, we can sell a cabin, make
Yeah.
some money.
Yep.
Then we go over there, and she's like, I want $30,000. Like, the dock is falling in now, and everything else is messed
worse
up. The
than
roof
it was.
leaks.
Yep.
And I'm like, God, y'all lived here for a year, you haven't done a damn thing except let it run down.
See, but the more you have all those thoughts, the more that ties you up in that. Then the frustration, the emotions kick in, and like I used to dip, and when you get emotional or whatever, that's when you're going to do those things. They're going to affect you the most. It's when you're going to grab the Twinkies when you're emotional. So, what I'm trying to say here is reality. If you just to kind of pull in different belief system here, this whole thing about a simulated reality, it's possible to have a completely simulated reality in just a little CD that you can jump into. That's just a small amount of space. It's kind of like I said, like if my brain tissue was ironed out and it fit into this room, I could crinkle it up and it'd be in one small space. So basically, I can have all this information in this small space and interact with it. But it's just me interacting with the rules of that particular game. If I learn the rules, then I can change the game completely. And what if this is actually the multiverse? And this is just like a shelf, with all these games. The multiverse, like every one of these games, is a different universe. Going back to this, and what you were saying, Annette, imagine like there's this holographic field of all these things that we could tap into. And basically a hologram is, I shoot a beam onto something and that makes that come to life. So here you are beaming on, let's say one of these TVs or realities is, I'm not smoking, right? So you're focusing there, and you're focusing consciously. But something disturbs that conscious focus, and you wind up focusing here, and you lose touch with that reality. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You go from focusing on the right side to the left side, and you've lost that reality. You've gone back into an old groove or an old rut. And the thing is, you got to be conscious to put yourself where you want to be, and know that your thought is doing it. So basically, you actually help prove that thought, or that what I'm saying is that your words are your world. So here you are saying that affirmation about the not smoking, but you lost those words when you started saying other words tied to the belief systems. You just have to catch yourself when you start not saying what you want to have.
Well, Stephen told me, he said, he said, what's stopping you from stopping?
Mhm.
And I said, oh gosh, I just love my cigarette with my coffee in the morning. He said, just try to remove that one.
Mhm.
And he got me thinking about it.
Mhm.
He didn't condemn me, he didn't judge
Right,
me, he
yeah.
didn't put me down, you know.
Mhm.
He just said, try to cut out that one and
Mhm.
see how you do. So
Yeah.
today I did.
Mhm.
And like I said, I went all the way to 2 o'clock and I was like, yes!
Yep.
But then when I came,
Mhm.
then that little voice in my head that loves to beat me up so
Right.
much showed up.
And that's when the real danger happens, is because you already did the act, and then you start beating yourself up, which makes that act even more negative. Because basically you're saying, even if you're saying like, I'm killing myself or something like, well, hello, that energies
Yeah.
really start affecting you. But if you didn't do it every day, so many days in a row, eventually you'd program yourself out of that. But imagine that little field of TVs is really just your toroidal energy field. It's what you're beaming in that particular field that plugs into other people and reality, and that's what you get, is what you're focusing on. So you've got to be really aware of your thoughts and your words. The words, I like words because the words tell you where your thoughts are, okay? Even more so than probably your body reflection. Well, they both do at the same level, but you can catch your words before it manifests physically. Does that make sense? So if you're saying, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, you need to catch and reprogram that before something shows up that makes you stupid.
This is going to sound really bad, and it was. Last year when I was going through some shit, it didn't dawn on me at first what I kept repeating until I found myself about 2 or 3 days in a row saying it multiple times, and I realized that was why I was creating more shit. Because every time something went wrong in a particular situation, what went in my head was, fuck my life.
Mhm.
And that's what I kept saying to myself, fuck my life. And that's exactly what
It
was
kept
going
getting
on.
more
Oh
and
my
more.
God, my life was so fucked. Before I really realized what in the hell I was saying inside of my own head.
Well, Jesus tried to tell us when he talks in the Bible, and I'm not a scripture quoter by any means, but I do believe in that one part where he says to speak it as you want it to be.
Yes. That brings up a
It's also believe and speak it. It's not just speaking it, but you got to believe it, which goes back to the
Yeah.
knowing. You have to know.
Speak
You have to
anything.
know that your words. And here's the thing, and this is what I'm trying to bridge myself into. Or I shouldn't say that we're catching words, not trying, but I'm working on bridging where there is no doubt. So when I say something, I expect it to happen, to the point that I'm demanding it, and to say that flies against some of my old beliefs, which we're not supposed to demand reality or demand. But to me, I'm moving out of that realm. So it's like Annette. I'm working to move out of my old rut into a more evolved level, and it goes against my own belief system. But I'm working to change that consciously. So it's like I'm conscious of my thoughts. I'm conscious of my words. But and because it even said it in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. But to me, if I was a highly evolved being and my words were going to create, I'd make damn sure I thought through what I was going to create before I ever said anything. And that's the problem with us, is we don't think it through. We just let it go. We let that negativity fly through like my life is fucked. We let that happen.
Yeah, I lost it at Home Depot the other day.
Oh my God, dude. Whoa.
Yeah.
We have been having trouble with this. We got one of those fireplace inserts.
Yeah, like the gas ones.
Gas ones.
Uh-huh.
We had to go all over the place to get the right connections
Mhm.
to hook it all up. Well, I went to Home Depot and there was these 2 old guys, and I was looking for the gas line, those
Uh-huh.
the corrugated metal lines.
Right,
you
flexible.
bend around. Oh, you can't use those on propane. Told her that. And I was like, man, you guys. I've been around this all my life, living
Yeah.
in the country with propane,
Mhm.
and oh my God! I said, man, we need you guys. Don't know
I'm
what the
surprised
hell
we're
you're
not
talking
far
about.
from
You don't know what you're talking about. Don't be talking like that or something. I don't
He,
know.
Yeah.
he got like the devil. You can see it in his eyes. His nasal things were flaring. No, man, lie to me. And I'm like, whoa, I gotta get out of here before we go to jail.
Yeah, it's sneaky though. We lose consciousness like that. I think I've said this before. I'm going to tell us. It's just a little Zen story. This one particular monk had been studying with this teacher for about 25 years, and this day the guru teacher was going to promote the monk after studying for 25 years. He was going to promote that monk to being a teacher as well. So and he was running late. The monk was running late. So the monk it's raining. So the monk had an umbrella. He's running through the streets. He gets to go to see the teacher. He puts his shoes down. He puts his umbrella down, and he runs in to see the teacher, who's going to promote him to be a teacher himself. And so the first thing, after he goes in there, bows and says hello to his teacher, the first thing the teacher says is, "On what side of your shoes did you leave the umbrella?" And the monk thought about it, but he couldn't remember because he had lost his consciousness in his haste. And he had to then spend 20 more years studying underneath that teacher because he didn't pass the test. But that's us, though. You've got to be conscious of what the hell you're doing all the time. And most times we just check out because it's so easy.
Well, let me ask you a question. Give me your spin then on
To check that one, I'll be thinking that.
it's hard.
Well,
On the difference in catching, if our word is our world,
Mhm.
110% of the time, and sharing. Like, I've got an issue in my life that I'm not changing because I perceive this one thing stopping me. And I mentioned that to you in passing, and I mentioned it to Pam in passing. What am I then doing to my reality by bringing that story up?
you're reinforcing it.
So should we not talk to each other? Should we not share with each other?
You should share what the hell you want, yeah.
Not what I don't have.
Right.
So it's the spin you put on the words.
Yeah, exactly. Because
no
here's
one
the
can make up, this is what I just flashed with. No matter how many times you tell your story, John can't fix it, and Pam can't fix it, and I can't fix
Right.
it. It's up to you anyway.
Right.
It's your choice.
and other people can give you different perceptions. So to me, it's important. Okay, I'm not saying you don't share stuff that you're going through, but if you really have friends, they're going to push you to the point of not focusing on that. They're going to help change the perception of that. And ultimately, you want to wind up focusing more on the positive than the negative about what you want to create, not what you don't have. Because the more you focus and give words to what you don't have, well, that's what you're going to get more of. You're going to get more of your fucked up life, you know?
Well, and that's what, like, Abraham teaches that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, is
Love
you don't
Esther.
focus on your lack of money, you focus on,
Right.
you know, bringing that, you know, getting your vibration to where it comes into your life.
And the thing though, to me, it's hard for me to, you know, sometimes share something completely and get you to get something on the level that it hit me, is this one phrase. I rest in knowing that my word is my world. That is it. If you can do that 100%, you're creating your world. The thing is where we go off track. You just have to be aware of where you go off track with that. Where the thoughts and the beliefs, and the words, or the words are the first manifestation of a thought, first thing that you can share with a group of people, you've got to be aware of what you're thinking and what you're giving your words to. Because a lot of the words that are running in our head were handed to us by somebody else. And if you want to live your own life, you've got to give up the words of somebody else. You've got to give up the beliefs of somebody else. And to me, you know, there's only a few things that I'm 100% in my consciousness. There's only a couple of things that I could share without any doubt. Okay, and beyond that, I'm not going to spend my time on it. I used to like contemplate. Okay, aliens came here and they screwed with our monkey's DNA. You know, there's all these different belief systems to play with, right? But I don't waste my time anymore. I know a few things that are true. I know that my consciousness runs the show. I know that we collectively create as we do individually. And I know that our thoughts are manifested in the physical world, our bodies, our feng shui, our reality. That's all I know for sure. That's all I need to focus on, because that right there alone can free me up. If I'm playing with somebody else's belief system or trying to figure this out or that out, or I'm wasting my energy instead of directing it where I want to go. It's like I'm going to give words to being free. So my new mantra as of now is I rest in knowing my word. I did it again. So my word is my world. And because 2% of the doubt will take that away. Just 2%. Somebody give you a little bit of doubt. So the thing to be aware of is if that's your mantra, you try to be 100% conscious, like we were talking about with Annette. You try to be so conscious that you catch when you stop believing it or knowing it.
Let me ask you a question. Every day that I have a really good day working, I always go out and ground myself to the ground outside, and I ask for divine guidance to channel all the knowledge of all the groomers who've gone before me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a great day.
Yeah.
And when I don't do that, is it just my belief if I don't do that?
No, okay. This is a conversation. I'm glad you said that because you cued me into something that Laurie and I talked about that I'd forgotten about. Because she was asking me some questions too when we were talking. And she says, when I pray to God and I pray for peace, I begin to see that more in my world, and I actually begin to see more people doing it. And my thing was, well, why you're seeing that is because you are now focusing on that. So by you going out and doing that ritual, you've just changed your thoughts. You see what I'm trying to say? You've aligned your thoughts with something that you're going to experience. So to me, and this is just me, it's just simply by changing your thought of what you're doing that makes all the difference. Because if it's all thought-based, if everything's controlled by consciousness, all I have to do is change my thoughts and everything starts changing. So I can go through a ritual to do it, which I recommend because those are powerful. But because here's the thought she was trying to say to me, and I've tried to express this multiple times, and it's hard to kind of get it across. Maybe I can do it this time. But like world peace, like wanting to experience world peace. It's like if you're wanting to experience world peace, then you use those words in your body and in your world. I'm not going to fight the war, and I'm not going to focus on the war. I'm not going to focus on the problem. I'm going to use the words that create the peace. And what she was really getting at, and what we talked about is, what if by me focusing on peace, since my words create my world, what if peace shows up in my world?
It will.
I can't control anybody, like you said, I can't control Katie's world.
Inside job.
Right, but what I'm saying is I actually start having that reality.
I live in a house where the men in my life are very unpeaceful, and they view everything as being negative, and they tune into the news and the paper and all this shit. We live in the same house, and the world that I live in, the city that I live in, is beautiful and peaceful. I don't run into miserable people during the day. I don't run into people that are angry, that are impatient, that are pissing me off. I run into people that I find to be very loving and giving and outgoing. My husband and my son live in the same city, again, same house, we're in the same community, and the world they see is this angry, impatient, horrible place. It's your world.
I even take it beyond that, though, because what she was getting at is that if she prayed for peace and peace happened in the world, I was telling her it'd just be in her world. You see what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be like it happened in all of your world. It happened in her world, because that's what it's all about. It's only your world. So that's what you got. So you can't fuck with anybody else's beliefs or anybody else's thoughts or what they want. You can't fight against them. You can't argue. What do you want? Simply focus on that. And that's all you need to stay beamed on that one thing, and don't let anything else distract you until it's come to you. Because as soon as you thought it, it's already moved it. But if I activate that reality, and then 10 minutes later or 3 days later, my focus goes here, let's say that reality was like 100 yards away, right? And the longer I focus on it, the closer it gets to me. And let's just say it's like 50 yards from being right in my body, and I change gears. That fades away again. Does that make sense? It's simply, you got to focus on what you want. Don't fight against anything else, and it'll show up.
But don't you think that you focus on peace in your world?
Mm-hmm.
You have your reality.
Right.
You're at peace.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is good. You're sending that vibration out.
Exactly.
To where if I'm in a very peaceful place and that vibration is emanating from me,
Mm-hmm.
Donna's going to pick up on that,
Right.
and she will have more of a tendency to become in a peaceful place
Right.
in her world.
Exactly. But it goes back to, again, embodying what you want to see, embodying the change, not trying to change the outside.
Right. I mean, again, you can only work in here. I can't.
Right.
I can't
And
fix
the other
Donna.
day, like, everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and I'm like,
Some days it's like that,
okay,
Yeah.
let's go home and pull the covers up over our heads.
Yeah. So one last thing here. I think I covered pretty much all of it. It's like everybody's on a different grade or a different class level. Like, you know, before you got into trigonometry, you had to learn addition, you had to learn subtraction, then division, multiples, algebra, geometry, trigonometry. So EFT to me is something that is very beneficial, but I also see it just like the keyboard, going to the touch screen, then going to voice command, which I believe will eventually be this thought command, which I don't doubt they're already playing with that. If they can inject things into the mind, they're already playing with this. Then we're going to move into a reality where tapping on the keyboard is non-existent. It's simply our thought. So to me, if we can get ahead of the game and we start controlling our thoughts, that's the number one thing. Because that is creating your reality. Yeah, Marianne?
So when you want to, like, okay, so I have this thought a lot, because I'm working on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't physically zip myself up,
Yeah.
but I mentally say,
Mm-hmm.
zip it up.
Right.
So
It works.
that works.
Right. And see, you know, all the techniques out there, I mean, there's a myriad of energetic techniques. You know why they work? Because somebody thought them up. Simply because somebody thought them the hell up. Our thoughts create that reality. If I believe it's going to work, it's going to freaking work for me. Why EFT works for me so well is because I believe in it. Okay? EFT works better for me than Reiki because I believe more in EFT. If I believe more in Reiki, Reiki would work more for me. It's just the way it is. It's what I put my belief
Belief
into.
is everything.
Yeah, it is everything. So yeah, Marion, if you just think I'm protected, that's it. Like, let me put it this way. Like, you know, being this time of year, you come in, you know, in the field I work in, you also do massage. You come into people, they're sick, they're coughing or whatever, and I can mentally think I'm fine. But if I have a little resistance in my mind, I then go to the tapping or something like, you know what I mean? So the tapping is like going back a step a little bit for me in that respect. Does that make sense? Because if my thought can do it, why waste doing the other? But I'll go to that when my mind is not so strong. And you know when you do that, you're like, I'm feeling good, and then your mind makes you get a little bit of doubt. You better take care of the doubt, whether it's a tapping or an herb or whatever. You just got to do something to offset that. But what I'm saying is if you know something 100%, I don't have to do the offset. I don't have to tap. I don't have to do anything because my thought does it. If I believe that, so in instances in my life where I believe something 100%, it happens. It works. So if something's not working in your life, then you're not believing it 100%. You're not resting in the knowing that your word will create it. That's what you got to rest in. That's the message I've been getting. You've got to know it so strongly that by you saying it, you know it's going to happen, and you walk towards it like there's no doubt. But if you're like, I want to do that, and you're going towards it, but then you go, I want to do this, you're not going to get there. At least not like you need to. It's like owning it and knowing it.
Now, do you feel that if there's something that you're meant to do in your life, and you're making steps towards that because it's something that you feel drawn to, and then you do get off on your little rabbit trails, you know, because life is life, and sometimes, you know, but you keep getting drawn back to that. I mean, I guess, is that the sign that, yeah, this is definitely where you need to be going, instead of, you know, oh, I want to open a cupcake shop, and you think about it for a little while, and it's cool, and then something else happens, and the cupcake shop never manifests.
Right.
But if there's something, you know, like for instance, what is in my head right now is something that I thought about 10 years ago that I really wanted to do. And just in the process of life happening, I lost that dream. Mm-hmm. And it has come back. And it's come back to where probably within the next couple of years, it's a very, very doable thing for me now. Okay. And so now I've kind of found myself back on that path. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I guess what I'm wanting, you know, is that basically what I'm meant to do?
Well, see,
I mean, not that that's the only thing I'm ever going to do in my life.
No.
Quote unquote,
you know,
meant
yeah,
to do anything other than what my higher self told me in my dream state. We're here to create and love, and they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Anything you want to do, it's wide open.
Maybe it just wasn't the time before Tennessee.
Exactly, you know, because like I said, life happens and
like,
things
sure.
get put aside and everything, but I've just noticed that there's a lot of things that I lost, like going through the divorce and all of that stuff is starting to come back. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm sitting around going, what do I need to be doing? It's like, boom, suddenly I'm thinking about it again.
Mhm.
And I'm finding that it's very, very doable now.
Mhm.
You know, and I mean, I'm really excited about this one particular aspect, but I don't know, so it's just kind of, but it's something that I haven't been thinking about. It's
Mhm.
just like,
Maybe you're just
It's here
more
again.
whole and you're able to
Yeah.
hear your own soul talking to you again. Or before you drowned it out because of the divorce and life drama.
yeah. Shit. Okay.
What, John?
I was just thinking that through.
I know, I can see it in your face.
I don't know if I have
Well, you
a
know,
great answer for that.
back when you were talking about, in one of the classes that I was taking,
Mhm.
our instructor said there was a real bad accident to one of the girls that was in our class. And she said, we're gonna take a minute and we're gonna energetically send arnica for the pain that she was in. So, I mean, okay, like when I need oil or something, because it's got different vibrations to it.
Exactly.
Okay? So like when I need oil and I don't have it right there, I just call for the frequency of it.
You don't have to even call for it. Simply thinking it changes your frequency. I mean, that's the power of what we have at our fingertips. So so that's what I'm saying, we're moving away from the realm of me needing something external to myself to do anything.
Like
My-
crystals.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Gin.
See, but people love those. There's nothing wrong with all that stuff. But yeah, we're moving. Yeah. But if everything is consciousness, I can think about something, and that will change my energy. Just like if I close my eyes and think of a nice sunset, it changes my frequency. I can think of a thing, and I can change it in my body. There's like a thing in magic that says if you know the real name of something, by simply speaking that name, you control it. But that's your thoughts. Your thoughts can know a thing, say something, and you've already changed the energy. So yeah, you can give yourself aspirin. I mean, seriously, if you think about the power of that. But that's one of those things where your mind goes, but if you go, you're not believing it 100%.
Yeah,
but if you
right.
know it 100%, that if I say something, it affects it, I can just think aspirin, and it's going to change my frequency. So to me, Marianne, to say that at a different level, like you're working on someone and you think that particular oil, what has become let me ask you this. What has become that energy? If you don't have the oil and you think it, well, how is it showing up?
In my thought.
I know, but where is it showing up? She is becoming that. She is becoming that particular thing. So if you think it, that's what you got to get. If you think it, you become it. Okay? If you think this is going to make you fat when you eat it, it's going to make you fat when you eat it. If you think loving thoughts, your energy is loving, period. If you think peaceful, it's peaceful. If you focus on war, your energy is going to be war. You're going to focus on trying to correct the world, then you're going to be always running around trying to correct everything. But if you think a thought and you focus on it, it's not all of a sudden that it's emanating from you, you are it. So yeah, you can actually give somebody, like if I was really in a nice place, and I could even think of like, and I don't have to necessarily even know something, like I could think antibiotics and touch somebody and be that energy frequency for that particular thing. It's like I become whatever I think of. That's the power of what we can move into. Is whatever I think, my energy becomes. So if you're working on someone and you think of a particular oil, your energies become that. So wherever you put your hands, you're putting that oil. Does that make sense? So, well, that was pretty much it. We went over a little bit. I'll call it stops
Yes.
here.